Hey, it's Game Hydro. We're going to show you how to beat normal stage 25. So hit the question mark to the right to see what the enemies are, to see their strengths and weaknesses, of course. Now, the big boss is the asteroid, which is strong against electric damage and force field damage. Now, the asteroid simply floats along the screen, making its way slowly down until crash time. And when it crashes, it's an instant kill. Next, Elite Swift Blade Comet. Damage ignores immunity stacks, takes 50% less fire damage. So, strong against fire damage, weak against whatever, or not weak, neutral against everything else. Energy, electric, etc. And then moving over to the meteorite, there are no strengths and no weaknesses here. The meteorite, of course, is pretty fast moving. The shatter star takes more physical damage and more force field damage, also very fast moving. So force field damage, obviously, you got the distortion, you got distortion. Yeah, distortion drone. No, disruption drone. You got the wasp nest, the hive, and you've got the gravity vortex gun. And here's a brand new one for you. The cosmic cube takes 50% less energy damage, 50% more physical damage, and it expands and becomes stronger as it takes damage, which is pretty unusual for something like this. All right, so because this is a stage loaded with fast-moving enemies, the skills that will be most effective here will typically be the beam. All right, let's move over here. Thank you. The beam and the hive and the Tesla coil. Number one, because the Tesla coil does a completely ridiculous amount of damage, and because all three of these skills tend to aim at the enemies that are closest to the headquarters, or to your base, rather. And the base will get smoked fast if you don't consistently destroy the crowds that are near it. Let's see. The next best skill, in my opinion, is the disruption drone, simply because with loads of fast-moving enemies on stage, the disruption drone can slow them down significantly, giving you a little bit more margin for error. What are we working with? All right, so these are my skill upgrade levels. What are we working with? Equipment-wise, a total power level of 782. This is not that difficult to get to with tier 3 equipment or with tier 1 and tier 2 legendaries and epics. That's what we got running. And then chip wise, most of the chips are not necessarily specific to certain skills, except for obviously that fire wheel one up there and some others. But we got chips like this: attack plus 30, fortress hit points, etc., that are good generalist chips. Attack plus 30 again, turret cooldown speed, fortress by 3% for each upgrade. Now, the fortress restoration chips are kind of nice because they can enable you not only to survive tough beats, but if you take only a very small amount of damage, you can potentially heal fully and maintain a perfect clear even while getting hit. There's those. There's those. There's those. If I'm going too fast, just pause the video. And the fortress upgrade level is level 27. So we've got the mines, and the mines create a cloud of fire that does damage over time. All right, so without further ado, we're going to play stage 25. All right, here we go. Level 1, of course. Now, I'm pretty sure I won't need the boss lock at all for this level. And the main skills I'm going to be trying to get, as I went over a little bit before, are the Tesla coil, the beam, the hive, and the disruption drone. The first three skills, because they target, there's the beam, because they target enemies that are closest to the base, and then the disruption drone, because it likes to slow things down. Alright. Well, wasn't counting on the fire wheel, but it's not a terrible decision, because even though the aiming kind of sucks and it's not practical for this level, it still does a ton of damage. Tesla coil is there. Gotta go Tesla coil if you see it. And then an upgrade to the Tesla coil. We want to upgrade the Tesla coil as fast as possible, because the electric chain, whatever it is, skill is so hilariously overpowered and actually is pretty easy to get. All right, disruption drone here. So the one ideal that we're missing out on is the hive, but hive for fire wheel is to me, it's a fair trade-off, because the fire wheel will bounce around, do a lot of damage to a lot of different enemies, soften them up, and make them easier to kill when they move within the range of the beam. All right, there's another booster there. 50% extra damage. Gotta have that one. All right, knocked out the first boss. Now, sometimes the most practical thing, if you aren't even close to knocking it out by the time it gets down to you, sometimes the most practical thing is simply to let it smash into your shield. It doesn't do that much damage. It only does about as much damage as a standard meteorite, despite having all that hit points. All right, out of these, we want to upgrade, which one? Fire wheel damage. We're going to go with that. The duration one is pretty good, but the damage one will legitimately provide a massive boost and enable you to kill these meteorites quicker. Electric chain surge, we already got it. And we're not even we just hit wave 10. So the electric chain surge, that's the skill I was talking about. That's the one that will enable you to beat lots and lots of tough levels. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And we're going to go Trap Matrix there, because now that we have electric chain surge and can do crazy amounts of area damage, let's just keep boosting it and see what the heck happens. It's about our... it's a level that is really hard to beat, we'll say that. All right, there we go. Cooperative beam doesn't do a ton of damage, but it does enough to be worth it. And we're going to go beam damage, obviously, because the more beam damage you do, the faster your beam jumps around between enemy and enemy. And we aren't going to be in danger of needing to put on boss lock anytime soon, I'm pretty sure. Mini fire wheel drones, that's a good one, because you got multiple fire wheels bouncing in different directions, doing significant damage. All right. I guess one underrated use of that cooperative beam is that often the beam targets that giant asteroid up there and does damage over time to it. So it makes it easier not to have to worry about the asteroid eventually crashing into your base. But no boss lock, because if you put on boss lock, then your asteroid is going to take up all the hits, and all those meteors and shatter stars are going to absolutely wreck you very fast. And if you've somehow gotten this far without knowing what boss lock is, hit the pause menu, go to the settings, and at the bottom it'll say automatic lock on to boss. Disable that. Alright, so we're at level 17 right now. Things are starting to get a little bit dicey. Let's see if we can make it through. Thankfully, we've got a Tesla coil with way too many upgrades. So this electric interference upgrade, very nice one. The more that the Tesla coil can bounce around and repel, the better. You don't want it to only have one target. You want it to have 3 targets, maybe 4 targets, plus a damage boost. The reason being is because it has the highest DPS out of any skill in the entire game. Then the asteroid is gone. Good stuff. So you want it to be able to hit more enemies at a time. Beam damage interval, we're going with that. Because any boost to the beam on this level typically is good stuff. Now, this is the final wave, and it is finally looking like, especially with that flame trail behind our fire wheel, softening up all those cubes, it is looking like we're going to beat this level pretty handily here. Almost there. And that, my friends, is how you beat level 25. So in conclusion, the Tesla coil is your MVP. The beam, arguably your second MVP. The fire wheel is the sleeper hit, the underrated player. And the disruption drone, that's kind of like your offensive line right there. You need it in order to slow enemies down enough for them not to absolutely wreck your base. Combine those ones together, and there are some that you can change out. For example, the hive is what we originally wanted instead of the fire wheel, but the fire wheel was a nice happy accident. You're pretty much not going to get anywhere if you use something like the Aero Blast or the Sky Guard, though. Or even you could use the laser, but it's really only useful if you get the triple beam shot. So take that and keep that in mind. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. This is Game Hydro. Please like and subscribe and check out our playlist of Galaxy Defense videos. There's a ton of them right now.